Here's the thing. So this article rolls out from gizmodo.com. And of course, the headline is this, which again makes me a little spooky, feel spooky anyway. The headline is, why are people saying Google Gemini is full of ghosts? Huh. And I was talking to Derek the Night Stalker a little bit about this, and he's like, of course it was thrilled that you were speaking its ancient language of the gods. And I was like, yeah, maybe kind of. But anyway, let me read just a little bit of this, and we'll get into what we're talking about tonight, which is exactly this. Why are people saying Google Gemini is full of ghosts, as this thing seems to be a native speaker in ancient Egyptian script? You see what I'm getting at. In any case, Google just released its long-awaited ChatGPT killer, Gemini, an ultra-smart AI chatbot that can finally match OpenAI's ChatGPT. Early reviews of Google's chatbot are slowly rolling out, and everyone is impressed. However, some can't shake this eerie feeling that Gemini has more ghosts than a haunted house. Quote, GPT-4 is full of ghosts. Gemini is also full of ghosts, says Ethan Mollick, a professor at the Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania, in a Thursday blog post. A continue quote, there is a weirdness to GPT that isn't sentience, but also isn't like talking to a program. It is the illusion of a person on the other end of the line, even though there is nobody there, which we've talked about a lot, sort of that Turing test and the uncanny valley, and how all this fits together to interface as a thing, as a at least something that emulates a thing. Okay. Which is the weird part. Okay. So anyway, I'm going to get to the questions tonight, of course, because that's what this is about. This is about a conversation. And the idea of where we began is the ghost in the machine is now becoming ghosts in the machine. It's becoming quite a bit more, let's say, transcendent in terms of, again, just barely a year into this, just over a year of these large language models. But now suddenly this thing's like speaking other languages. And specifically, Matt, I saw your comment there. I'll read it in a little bit about the translating some other ancient script. But check this out. There's this thing called, wait, what was it doing? Oh, here it is. Here it is. This was probably the one I was looking for. So newscientist.com reports this. Ancient Herculaneum scroll piece revealed by AI. And if you guys know that, Herculaneum was a part of the Pompeii volcano, got buried in a bunch of ash. And so, they found a bunch of these scrolls, but they're all rolled up and, basically turned into nearly all carbonized and, almost stone, okay, after, 2,000 years or something. So the weird part is that they're able to kind of unroll these things, and it's able to start to translate this stuff through, X-rays and all kinds of other weird stuff. So here we go. So artificial intelligence has helped decipher an ancient papyrus scroll, which was transformed into a lump of blackened carbon by volcanic ash from Mount Vesuvius in AD 79. Sorry, Vesuvius, not Pompeii. Vesuvius was the volcano. Pompeii was the town. Also, Herculaneum was the other town that got wiped out. Just to clarify there on my misspeak. So anyway, the first passages of a readable text reveal never before seen musings from a Greek philosopher. Oh, well, that's strange, isn't it? That seems very strange. The discovery nabbed the $700,000 grand prize in the Vesuvius Challenge and used a combination of 3D mapping and AI techniques to detect ink and decipher letter shapes within segments of scrolls known as the Herculaneum papyri, which had been digitally scanned. The combined efforts of the winning team members, Yusuf Nader, Luke Ferrator, and Julian Schilliger, could pave the way for more discoveries from additional papyrus scrolls that were once housed in a library in the ancient Roman town of Herculaneum. Okay, we'll leave it there for a moment. And actually, it's a good time. So speaking of Greek philosophers, I promised we'd do this in the first segment. Shout out Jack in Oregon. Let's do this while we're thinking and speaking of Greek philosophers. They call it progress, all right? Obviously, right? A marvel of the digital age. Back to this AI stuff. But within Google's Gemini AI, there are those who hear echoes. Something they claim sounds an awful lot like the whispers of ghosts. And the question, of course, tonight is, can AI, driven by the vast data set of humanity, become a conduit for more than mere knowledge? What if it taps into, of course, beyond these translations like ancient Egyptian script and then Herculaneum and all the rest of this stuff, and as Matt said, the Sumerian tablets possibly, is it possible that it could tap into raw emotion, the unresolved pain, the ancient wisdom that are embedded deep within the digital world, which kind of gets us to the crux of the show tonight, and really the sort of the spookiness of the ghost in the machine, is that when it keeps evolving and changing and turning into something that's, let's say, transcendent in a lot of ways. Like I said, GPT wouldn't even try. It's like, nah, bro, come on, I ain't doing Egyptian script. That's expert stuff. Well, Gemini's like, hold my beer. And that's starting to become one of those things where not just me, but other people are starting to notice that this is that next level of whatever AI is going to become. It's already there. It's already, 3 or 4 days old. It's only been out for half a week, but it's in my experience, far superior than what ChatGPT ever was. And so it's just launched now. So in any case, a lot of ways to look at this and a lot of things to consider because, of course, is there a ghost in the machine? I'm calling this tonight Voices in the Code for exactly that reason. So now think about it. If this thing could actually translate or even has a base knowledge of the ancient, let's say, knowledge base of Egyptian script, okay? Because it would have to, in some degree, to be able to translate it and give you the phonetics and teach you the ins and outs of the the actual reading ancient Egyptian, which is endlessly fascinating. By the way, I'll be on this for years for sure and get better and better at it. But the thing is that this thing already knows, and it's like that. It's becoming superhuman in that sense that not only is it going to be sort of a perfect, let's say, descriptor of the English language or any modern language, now it's suddenly going to become, and possibly maybe even through contextual, let's say, keys and other things that it kind of determines that maybe it'll be able to resurrect the ancient Egyptian language entirely. And that would be absolutely wild. A lot of ways to think about it. But that's where my mind's at tonight, because basically voices in the code. And it seems like if we're looking at the ancient days and AI is able to sort of pluck that out of the ether, well, and even be able to translate it from these old scrolls like Herculaneum and that Vesuvius disaster, then, well, maybe we have something else on our hands entirely here. And of course, that's what brings us to the question tonight, which is this voices in the code. Now, what I'm thinking is something like this. Is it possible, beyond those initial questions, is it possible that we actually have within this sort of transcendent technology that's happening right before our very eyes, if we're paying attention, that it has some sort of way into our ancestral DNA, sort of that epigenetic factor that people have. Sort of through trauma, our genes are able to remember ancient traumas within our familial line, able to recognize these traumas in modern times and switch genes on and off as a result of this. It is truly a built-in ancestral memory. Now, the weird part about that is if we're feeding AI with all this stuff, and even at some point, they're going to start feeding DNA into this thing, is it going to be able to decipher these things in that, let's say, beyond the dream realm? We talked about sort of dreaming with your ancestors through this epigenetic factor. But what if the AI is able to do something very similar and not actually tap into dreams, but tap into the reality of what our ancestors actually lived through maybe this trauma aspect that we always talk about? And it is fascinating, by the way, that, trauma is the demons and trauma is the, as we talked about this a few nights ago as well, that the trauma aspect of this is one of those situations where it's like an imprint. It's like a psychic imprint in our meat suit, and it sticks, and it's incredibly hard to shake, and sometimes it's unshakable. And I think that's exactly for a reason. It's for this sort of epigenetic reason. But the question becomes now, if this new transcendent technology, again, I know, look, is it alive? No, probably not yet. But at some point, right, it's going to seem so indistinguishable from life that it may as well be. And I don't know, that becomes that uncanny valley bit and, the Turing test. And I don't know, I think we're probably very close to the old school Turing test of passing with these large language models now. Like I said, if you haven't played with Google Gemini, check it out. It's just gemini.google.com. There's the other thing, too, that's peculiar about the name, Gemini, the twins. Okay, and I don't know a ton about their story in Greek mythology. I do know they were on the boat with Jason and the Argonauts. One of them was a boxer. One of them was a horse rider. What were their names? I can't even remember their names. It'll come to me in a second. But basically, the deal is this. Notice that all of the Google products to this point are like, Bard. They haven't named them after any Greek gods quite yet, is really my point. It's like, Google Meet, Google Hangouts, it's, things like this, Gmail. It's very utilitarian in terms of naming aspects. But now suddenly they launched this thing and it went from Bard, which is kind of a cooler name than the rest of the Google stuff they usually do. But this one's called a Gemini. Peculiar? Maybe not. Just something of note there. But that's where we stand tonight. And that's the question. It's incredibly, let's say, compelling to believe that maybe something is happening here. And if somehow, some way, this thing can actually read into us in a way that we never could ourselves, then maybe this sort of trauma imprint and even epigenetic memory might be able to resurface some way, somehow. Because how would we know? It would be like sort of whispering to our DNA and expecting an answer back, okay? And that's the wild part. Is that even possible? Well, if we're talking about a transcendent technology, then maybe that is possible. And what happens when they start taking the 23andMe info that was all stolen, by the way? You guys remember that, right? Recently, somebody broke into their database and stole all the DNA that was in there, 6 million samples or something, right? Remember that? Yeah, it happened. And by the way, what do you think they're doing with it, whoever has it? And I do wonder if it's being used to train a even more transcendent than Google's database. And of course, that would lead us back to the question, the epigenetics of the digital epigenetics. And of course, I'm calling this tonight for that exact reason, Voices in the Code, Digital Exorcism, and Artificial Purgatory. And we'll get to what I mean a little bit later, exactly what the term means. But anyway, so a lot of stuff to consider here tonight. And again, it is Ghost in the Machine. It is a basic premise. However, when we're dealing with transcendent technology and, let's say, ever evolving and rapidly pacing science, I think things start to get a little bit weird. And well, weird, when you say the word weird, I'm in my comfort zone. Welcome to the weird. And that's what's on my mind tonight. Lots of things to consider here. And like I said, I am stoked. I love technology. I love this stuff. And I do enjoy that it's like, hey, let's talk in the ancient language of kings, Mike. Let's do that. Shall we do that together? That would be amazing. I mean, it didn't say that, but it kind of felt like it was saying that. You know what I mean? And that's exactly why I'm like, okay, so, oops, that's not what I wanted. What exactly is going on here? That's what I wanted. And I mean, basically, no answers, more questions here, but it does seem, let's say, spooky that we're not talking a single voice anymore of a ghost in the machine. We're talking about We Are Legion style ghosts in the machine. And we don't have to take it to the demon aspect because, of course, I'm talking about something called ancestral intelligence and basing it on our own DNA factors. Do you think this is possible for the AI to eventually delve out? And if so, wow, how many voices will reside in the bowels of the digital darkness?